Howdy, everybody. Shasta College Humanities 4 Film Studies. How's everything doing out there? Hope you had a decent weekend. Feels like spring out there. No moisture on the horizon. Anywho, hope your Citizen Kane paper wasn't too torturous. Hope you gave me some great insights. Can't wait to read it, but I have to get through essay 2 first. I'm on it. I'm going to sign another essay tonight. Essay 4. Won't be due for a week. You'll have plenty of time to take it on. Look for it on Canvas for assignments. Tonight we're still in the 1950s because it was a bumper year for cinema. I've gone through the post-cinema, the European, the Italian neorealism. We've talked about what's going on even in Japan and with the British cinema, how that was changing right after the war. The war changed everything, and American cinema had taken a darker turn into film noir, the dark stories about our dark character during the atomic bomb scare. And guess what? We're in a new one. Russia's threatening to nuke people now, just like they always have. Anyway, that's how we are. It's how we grew up. Tonight, I want to talk about a revolutionary change, a seismic change in cinema when it comes to acting. I know you're thinking, oh, acting. You stand and say your lines, you look pretty, and you move on. Well, it's more involved in that. Up until this time in our history, we had movie stars, Clark Gable and Carol Lombard and Katharine Hepburn and all the rest. Great actors, all of them. But they took on a persona. Like Humphrey Bogart essentially took on the persona of Bogart, the tough detective, cigarette smoking detective, and he played that just about his entire career. Few exceptions. Treasure Madre would be one of them. And a movie he won the Academy Award for, African Queen. But other movie stars like Clark Gable and Cary Grant essentially played Clark Gable. And that's not easy to do, to play yourself or somebody that you're convincing people you are. So, along with political turmoil, we're in the Cold War. We got the communist witch hunt going on. Well, we had a radical change in acting that started really in the 30s with the group theater. They started looking at it in a more naturalistic way, more organically, not just saying your lines and being pretty. They wanted to dig deeper. So there was a couple revolutionary acting teachers, Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler, Elia Kazan, and others that started in the group theater and branched off and started their own acting schools. At least not Elia Kazan, he was the director, but he had directed a lot of these actors that had come through these schools or and they had a term for it. They called it method acting. Maybe you've heard that term. The people who studied in those days were up and coming new actors in the New York City. In the old days, to get to be a movie star, you just didn't go to Hollywood because someone said you're pretty or you're handsome. You went there after you trained in New York City and perhaps performed off Broadway or Broadway plays. and then that took you to Hollywood. That was usually the steps you had to take. And so you had to be a serious New York actor who studied before you just took the leap to Hollywood. And so the people that did that, who the generation of the New York method actor studied actor, would the leading the bunch would be Marlon Brando, James Dean, Montgomery Clift, Eva St. Marie, Eva Marie Saint, sorry, Shelley Winters, Marilyn Monroe. It was an approach to acting that had nobody's ever seen before. And it was based on sense memory. It was based on your experience. So, in a scene, if it's emotional and you need to cry, in the method acting um, simplistic way, would be to bring up a memory, your own memory of something sad about loss, something, and that would indicate your character's emotion. So now it looks real for the camera, because the camera senses a lie right off the bat. And so this new acting was turned over the apple cart of the old established Hollywood movie stars. And a lot of the old movie stars did not like it. They thought it was a waste of time. They thought it was too psychological. And they didn't want to feel the pain of their characters or the joy of the characters. They wanted to act them out. And some of them did very well at it. But this other way of acting, this sense memory acting, kind of took over the serious actor. Now you're not just somebody up there in front of the camera or on the stage reciting some lines that somebody else wrote and a director who told you where to stand and how to move. You're actually part of the process by bringing your own memory into the character you're playing. So there was a great play by Tennessee Williams called Streetcar Named Desire, and it starred Marlon Brando, and it changed the course of history, of acting history. Essentially, it did. It was that big of a seismic change. When people saw that, they knew something was different. Now, Brando also brought his own persona into it. He wasn't a traditionally handsome, slick actor. They would call him the anti-hero in the pieces he would play. A lot of times he's not playing the nicest guy, but he's got so much charisma and so much honesty in his performance that nobody cared if he was nice or not. Stanley Kowalski really isn't nice, folks. If you've seen the movie, which is directed by the great Elia Kazan, he rapes a woman. He cheats on his pregnant wife. He's a brute, but we empathize with him because he's bringing the inner workings of this character, Stanley Kowalski, to life. And so we understand where he's coming from. He's not a cardboard cutout. And that was on Broadway with another play at the time, similar era, late 1940s, New York City, Death of a Salesman, directed by, again, Elia Kazan, the great director. And that was changing everything also. Death of a Salesman's probably been performed in every high school in the country for the last 60 years, longer. And it's about Willie Loman, the the salesman who's been out selling stuff all his life, and his life is become rather meaningless. And he ends his life in the play. It's got a downer ending. Willie Loman kills himself because he didn't accomplish his dreams. Arthur Miller, who wrote this play, based it on his father. There was a lot of Willie Lomans out there in the Depression era selling door to door, living in their cars. That was a rough way to make a living. And at the end of the day, his character was empty. Even though he had a family and a loving wife, it wasn't enough to keep him alive. So the playwrights were changing. Streetcar Named Desire, which is written by Tennessee Williams, is not a happy play, folks, but it's alive and vivid and necessary. These aren't happy ending plays because the world was just coming out of World War II. And the playwrights were reflecting that, as were the actors. So then we have Marlon Brando, who's leading the pack. And then we have somebody just a tad younger than him, James Dean, who is seeing the same thing we're all seeing when they see Brando up there, something he could relate to. And he busts on the scene. In his young life, he only made 3 movies, folks. He died at 24 years old in a car wreck. He was just getting started. James Dean died after having made 3 movies, and only one of them had been released to the general public. The other 2 had been made but not released. His most famous movie he ever made, Rebel Without a Cause, maybe you've heard of it, was released after he was dead. It's like having your favorite Keanu Reeves movie, or who's your favorite actor now? All these guys are on the shoulders of these guys anyway, from all of them. Johnny Depp, Bradley Cooper, all of them are on the shoulders of Brando and James Dean, and they know it. They admit it. It's like if your favorite actor, who would it be? Who's your favorite male actor or female actress? Who is it? What if they made a movie you absolutely adored and you believed in and it related to you and you absorbed it and it really meant something to you, and the person up there acting in it is dead? They're not going to make any more movies. It's going to have a profound effect on you. And so when James Dean died, it had a profound effect on the entire culture because he was coming up in an era of rock and roll, and he was representing the youth of America. Finally, the youth could relate to somebody. It was him, and he was taken away from us. Yes, he was replaced by other people, and they're still trying to grasp that golden thread of what made James Dean tick. Now, he studied at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg. Brando was studying with Stella Adler. They all came from the same sense memory mindset. Stella Adler was more not as mean. She was more comforting. Whereas Lee Strasberg was kind of a brute and a bully in his acting classes, and they were packed, folks, with people. You'd recognize them. Let me just put it this way: your parents or grandparents would recognize them. Maybe you wouldn't, but people like Paul Newman, Ben Gazzara, just about any actor worth their salt were in these classes. They were taking acting classes, folks. That's how seriously they studied. They weren't just pretty faces. That era was ending. That's how important this culture of the sense memory acting was, and it changed the Broadway plays for sure, but it changed cinema because these people now went from doing plays in New York City, just small audiences maybe, to Hollywood, where their audiences were huge and the camera was close up. And Brando made half dozen masterpieces in the 1950s, from Streetcar Named Desire to Viva Zapata to On the Waterfront. James Dean did East of Eden, Giant, Monroe Without a Cause. These were monumental, game-changing films. If you saw the little documentary in the House on Un-American Activities, Elie Kazan, one of the great directors of this era, had been called in, and he named names. And I think I told you this last week. He had worked with Brando already on 2 films, on a play. He'd worked with James Dean, Montgomery Clift. And then Marlon Brando said, I will never work with you again because you ratted people out. Well, then Elie Kazan sent him the script On the Waterfront, and Brando changed his mind because he knew gold when he saw it. And Brando did On the Waterfront and won all the major Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Marlon Brando. So even he put his beliefs aside when he saw good material. That's how the power of the good material and good cinema is. So, what are you going to be doing this week? I'll be posting. There'll be a little documentary on the Lee Strasberg School of Acting, maybe Stella Adler. I don't know if I can find one for her. We'll see if I can. And it'll give you a little overview how effective this um, method thing was. I think the documentary I have for Lee Strasberg is really short. It's made by a German director, and there's some subtitles, but you'll be able to understand it. Most of it's in English, but there is some German in there, but you'll be able to understand it. It's relatively simple. Anyway, and cut and straightforward. Um, Marilyn Monroe, who was maybe you know who that is, who was she was a sex symbol, the platinum blonde, the dumb blonde. That was a persona, by the way. She's really smart. She read a lot of books, um, but she knew how to play that dumb blonde with the voluptuous figure. Well, even she studied with Lee Strasberg to try to find out how to be a better actress, not just a sex symbol. And she made several movies using the method. She's a pain in the ass because she was emotionally very vulnerable and would never hardly come out of her trailer until she was ready emotionally to work. And but she did some of the best work of her life in The Misfits, which was written by her husband, Arthur Miller, the playwright. Starred Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift, Eli Wallach, Thelma Ritter, directed by the great John Huston. And it was her last movie she ever made. She committed suicide 2 years later, uh, at 36 years old. She was a fragile, you know, human being that probably shouldn't have been a Hollywood star. It killed her, essentially. So, check out that documentary. I'm going to sign your essay right now. Look forward to an assignment. You got 2 choices. Watch the film On the Waterfront by Elie Kazan, starring Marlon Brando. Write your 3 to 5 page essay. You know what I'm looking for. Critical, analytical essay, not a review. Don't bitch about the black and white. Look at the themes, the subtext, the camera work, the direction, the script, the actors, the music. What makes it matter? That a filmmaker watch, hey, it's in color, folks. Is James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause? What makes it matter? Look at the themes. Look at the symbols, the camera. Look at the direction, the script. Why does it matter? To this very day, it was a revolution when it came out. Directed by Nicholas Ray, who was a true rebel with the cause. I'll post that stuff. It'll be due next Monday. You have a week to watch it. Let it sink in. Watch it. Take notes. Don't just go to Wikipedia or some other source to look at the quick uh, thumbnail sketch of what the plot is. I want you guys to come up with your own words, thoughts, and analysis. Yes, you can do research. Hope you do. I hope you watch the movie too and get through it. And tell me why it matters. And on that note, I will see you next time when the story of film continues.